think the MST, in fact, still is a very important political force within Brazil, because although the Lula government, almost 8 years now, has in fact demobilized to a great extent a lot of the popular movements, social movements, the MST has always resisted this, and they've always campaigned not only for land reform and land issues, but for all sorts of other political questions as well. So whatever demonstration you see in Brazil anyway, you'll always see the MST flag there as well. And I think what's symptomatic as well is the fact that the right wing in Brazil, the right wing political forces, still find the need to constantly attack the MST and try to criminalize it. And this seems to me to say that, they're important still. I mean, for example, in Congress now, they're setting up a parliamentary committee of inquiry to investigate the MST. They've been trying to get this set up for years. In Rio Grande do Sul in the south, the local public prosecutors are also criminalising the MST. They've tried to close down the schools in the settlements by saying they're illegal. So in many ways, the MST still represents an enemy for the right wing, which means that they see them as a threat. On the other hand, they could have done much more. When you have a government in power, a left-wing government in power, you would expect, land reform and the MST to have been given sort of pride of place. But that hasn't happened. And I always remember the leader of the MST, João Pedro, saying right at the beginning of the Lula government, when people said to him, oh, well, you can sort of stand down now, no need to go in for occupations anymore, you all have it on a plate. And him saying, no, that's not the case. We have to go on putting the pressure on the government. Nothing will happen unless we put pressure on the government. We cannot just stand back and wait for it to happen. And of course, it turned out to be true. They've had to go on marching, campaigning, occupying to get land under the Lula government. And in fact, they haven't really achieved, in terms of actual area of land, it hasn't been half as much as the Lula government promised.
And it's very difficult under the Lula government. I remember taking part in a march a few years ago from Goiânia to the capital, Brasilia, and there were thousands of members of the MST, and we marched there demanding agrarian reform. And we got to the presidential palace full of these demands, and Lula went out and met the MST. And Lula is a man of the people. He comes from a poor family. He was born in the northeast, and he identifies with the people and he demobilizes them. He went and said, my heart is with you. I want to deliver radical agrarian reform for this country, but you've got to be patient. We've had 500 years of repression, of dominance from outside. It's going to take time. And so people on the march finished up clapping. And so it's very hard to keep up this pressure that steadily recognises is important. And of course, Lula is probably, for the little that he's given the movement, he is probably the best politician for the movement at the moment. And Lula has done some things. He has given a lot of cheap credit to the settlements. So once the MST have won land and they're trying to make their agricultural work, and they need these loans and they need marketing facilities, he's done a lot on that front. What he hasn't done is actually deliver a radical programme of agrarian reform that actually completely revolutionised land tenure in Brazil. What we hoped was that peasant agriculture would be given a central role, and that hasn't happened. Land distribution is just as skewed, just as unequal now as it was when Lula came to power. So there has been some land distribution, but still the landless movement has to sort of fit into the spaces left by agribusiness. Agribusiness is still seen as the real sort of heart of agriculture that Brazil needs for its exports, for economic development.